Hello, my name is Connor Kamoli.
And my name is Ed Trudenick.
Today, the date is August 2nd, and I will be interviewing him about the George Moscone and Harvey Milk assassination in San Francisco. So, this happened in 1978. How old were you in 1978?
In 1978, I was 25.
Nice. And where were you working at the time, and what was your role?
At that time I had just graduated from law school, and I was working at the city hall in the registrar of voters office.
Where did you grow up? Like, where did you go to school? And yeah.
Well, I was born and raised in San Francisco. I went to St. John's Elementary School. I went to Lick Wilmerding High School and the University of San Francisco and Santa Clara Law School. So I was a Bay Area resident.
And what was it like working in City Hall during that era? Like, what kind of people worked there, and what was like the daily atmosphere like?
City Hall at that time was very active. There were a lot of. It was a very political area. You may remember at that time there was the People's Temple,
Yeah.
with Jim Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Jones was in the City Hall often before he went off to Guyana. It was during that period of time that the Jim Jones Guyana incident happened. It was in that time frame. It was a very political and very active with George Moscone was a very progressive mayor. He had been in politics for a long time. Knew him from from before. As it happened, my cousin was an assemblyman and a state senator in assemblyman in San Francisco. His name was John Ferran. 280 is named after him. He and Leo McCarthy, who became the Speaker of the Assembly, were great friends. They were, competitors with Willie Brown and Phil and John Burton, mm-hmm. who were different parts of the Democratic Party at that time.
Nice. And you talked about working in City Hall, so what do you remember about the morning of November 27, 1978? Was anything unusual happening before the news broke out? Anything unusual happening before the news broke out?
It wasn't unusual. It was after the November election at that time. I had worked at the registrar of voters as a summer job, and I had done that for a long time. And I was doing the same thing. I was between graduating law school, doing the bar exam, and waiting for my results at that time that were coming out shortly after this happened. So I was working there, and it was after the election, and at that time there was a lot of things that we needed to do to verify the results of the election, and that was a lot of what we were doing at that time at City Hall.
Yeah, where exactly were you when you found out that Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Milk had been shot?
I was in the registrar of voters office in the City Hall, which was in a wing of City Hall. If you look at City Hall from Polk Street, it is in the far right portion of City Hall that runs along McAllister,
yeah.
Which McAllister is one of the streets that runs along the side of City Hall.
And then how did you find out this happened? Was it announced, or did it spread person to person?
Well, all of a sudden, we were doing our jobs, working around thing, and all of a sudden there was a lot of if you would call it. People were screaming. There was a lot of, you know, issues going on. Hearing from the police and whatnot. But I was there working. I didn't know what was going on, but you knew something was happening at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, leading into the next question, like, what was your immediate reaction? Like, what were people around you doing? Or, people were screaming, but, like, people who you were working with, what were they thinking?
No one really knew what was happening. It was very confusing. There was a lot of confusion. It wasn't something where people were saying, okay, this, you got to remember, this was 1978. Nobody has cell phones or anything. There was no communication. It was just, you heard rumors of there was a shooting, there was this and that, but no one knew what was going on.
Do you remember how you felt, like, afterwards? Like, were you scared, shocked, or angry or anything like that?
I wasn't necessarily scared, but it was like it was confused. It was very confusing because you didn't know what really had happened, and at some point there was an announcement that everybody should leave the building, and I don't think I really found out about what really happened until I got home that night, and you saw the reports on the news of what really had transpired.
Yeah, and did you ever interact or know George Moscone or Harvey Milk, like, personally at all?
No, not either one of them. I just knew of them as they were very significant political figures in San Francisco at that time. George Moscone, going way back. Harvey Milk was fairly recent. I mean, at that point, and maybe a couple of years from that point, he was an activist in the gay community in the Castro and whatnot, and then finally was able to win an election into being a supervisor. And what had happened prior to, years back, the elections were citywide when you were electing supervisors. And shortly before the time of 1978, San Francisco made the districts so that every district would elect their own supervisor. Yeah. And that made it possible for Harvey Milk to get elected as a supervisor because he was, the Castro district, which was a predominantly gay community, now had a significant amount of power to put someone on the board of supervisors, and Harvey Milk, that was the first time he'd been elected, but he was a political organizer for a long time, for some somewhat period of time. George Moscone had been in politics in San Francisco for a longer period of time, and he was a state senator. He was in the I think he was in the assembly before that time, but now he had been elected as the mayor of San Francisco, which was a big deal. Yeah. Yeah.
How did this tragedy affect the people who worked in City Hall afterwards? Like, did anything change right away, like security or like the tone in the building at all? Was it different?
Well, to give you an idea, there had been prior to this time metal detectors for going into City Hall through the main entrances, which was the main entrance is on Polk Street, but things were a little bit lax, and as it was found out later, is that Dan White, who was the person who shot the mayor and Harvey Milk, came in through the entrance that was on McAllister Street, which was actually part of the Registrar of Voters office, and was able to come through there and get through without having to go through the metal detectors, which would have identified that he was carrying a gun coming into the city hall.
And then we talked about it earlier, like emotionally, but how did this event like affect you personally at the time? Like, did it change the way you thought about politics at all, or like public service?
Quite honestly, I mean, I was born in 1953, so the first really election that I really knew was the Kennedy election, which I was very, interested in. At that time, I lived in the Mission District, which was very Irish Catholic, so obviously, and very democratic.
Yep.
So obviously, we were very in tune with the Kennedy election. I remember watching the results when I was at that time 6 or 7 years old, and watching the election results in 1960, and remember my grandmother coming in to me the next morning with the paper saying Kennedy wins, and that was a big deal, and going on, in 1963, I was in the 5th grade when the Kennedy assassination happened, and it was to me that was really devastating. It was almost like I can only imagine it was to compare it to somebody your generation. It was 9/11 or something like that. It was almost like the world stopped in that time, and I had somewhat of a certain similar feeling, at that time. San Francisco in that time was a little bit, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of violence that going on at that time. You had the zebra killings, where people were there was a lot of shootings and things like that. But I don't know that I thought that this was a something different than what had been going on at the time.
Has your view of the event changed over time? Like, how often, or do you still think about it today?
I don't think about it a lot. That was 1978. That was a long time ago, and things have changed. There's been a lot of events, but I do think of it as it was a kind of a seminal moment in San Francisco history. I mean, you talk about what happened with the Harvey Milk, who had been really a key member of the gay community, and what happened to the gay community from that point on. There were other people that kind of stepped up, but there was really nobody who was as kind of a charismatic figure as he was. And then you look at what happened with Dianne Feinstein. She happened to be the president of the Board of Supervisors at that time, and then she became acting mayor. She had run for mayor 2 or 3 times since that, prior to that time, and not done well. And this gave her an opportunity to get in there, and she did well as a mayor and served a couple of terms, and that kind of catapulted her into her career as senator, and which she spent a long time with the Senate. With San Francisco, that event was was really a significant event for the gay community, for one thing, because of the of what happened with Harvey Milk, and for what happened thereafter when Dan White was acquitted from in that in the as a result of the lawsuit of the criminal suit that went on. I happened to be still in City Hall when that happened, and when the Dan White riots happened, which actually was a little bit more concerning to me because I was working in City Hall at that time.
Yeah, and what should people today, like young people like me, like remember about that day?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to.
Yeah.
I'm not a young person, so I would have to put it to you, but I would think that you would look at it as a terrible situation where, and we've seen it more and more, where people use violence to kind of move their response to the government in that way. We've seen it recently with the folks up in Minnesota that were killed. More, attempts at the life of Donald Trump, whether you like him or not. It's no way to address those issues. I've seen it through my lifetime with the Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King, with Bobby Kennedy, and that was at a time when I was your age. I was in high school at the time of the in '68. I was a freshman in high school at that time, and it was very troubling. And to think that our government would be affected that way.
Yeah. Finally, what do I need to know that I haven't asked you about?
I think you've hit most of the points.
Yeah.
I think that I think that what you need to understand in this day and age is things are not as bad today as they may have been before. I think people, as someone who is myself, in my 70s, see people get very upset about the way things are today and how things are happening. Things have been bad before. We're going to get through this.
Yeah.
We got through that.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this. And I think if we just keep on with a thought of that we as a people, if we kind of all join together, it'll be, we'll get through any of these problems that we have today.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for letting me interview, and thank you so much for all the information you gave me about this event.
Thank you for asking me to do it.
Thank you.